question, according to Plato. Or as Carl Jung says, half the battle to any research is having the right question, or half the solution is the right question. So I want to cover the global marketing research and understand why it's important to have good market research. The first questions that we're looking at initially is asking, why is market research important? Are we inherently biased in our research? And how do we remove that bias in our research? And what is good data? The purpose of market research is to help companies make decisions about their marketing strategy and understand its customers and their needs. In fact, you might come up with new solutions or new ideas or find new problems where new solutions are needed because of the research you're doing. So you must have good knowledge of what's happening in order to do well. What questions are we kind of asking? Who buys? What do they really buy? What for do they buy? Why, when, and where? So how do we find our customers? How do they decide to buy? What is their buying process like? And what political, economic, and cultural factors that will affect our operations and our actual ability to meet our customers' needs? Challenges with research is that oftentimes we're stuck with too much data. Or it's not about the amount of data, it's about the right data. So deciding what's useful and what's not. Early research will tend to be quite expansive, but you'll need to be able to narrow it down quickly and effectively to meet your research needs. And that's why asking the right question is necessary. Deciding what's useful or not is what's strategically relevant to our company and our objectives, and also what's important in finding reliable and current data. We don't want to talk about processing chips and customer data from the 1990s, for sales in 2025. It'd be terrible. The market research goes into these basic categories: the firm, the environment, the competition, the product, the marketing mix, and specific historical data if available. That's firm specific. The corporate environment, we want to know our strengths if we're going to expand internationally. Can we do this? What are our weaknesses in our international expansion? Are we missing employees? Do we have dedicated staff? Do we have time, resources, such as money, employee commitment? If you do not have a team that's ready to go abroad, going abroad isn't going to be a very good decision. So you need people on board, bought into that concept. Management commitment to internationalize. The tone from the top. So everybody needs to be on board. This cannot just be an executive decision-making level. Also, you want to know how knowledgeable are you. Some teams are really well-developed international. Others never been abroad. That will affect how you engage in different markets. The global marketing environment has the political dimensions, the marketing infrastructure, economic dimensions, as well as government and technological and cultural barriers. These things you need to understand at nuanced levels, and that's where you might want to outsource your marketing. You want to know what politics are affecting your market. If you're in the energy industry, say you're in oil, you will have a lot of regulatory environment that's going to affect you, and politics plays a role. Europe and Nord Stream 2, for example, it's pipeline. The competitive landscape. You need to know at a country level, industry level, and firm level, who are you competing with? At the country level, all the data you can find there, it's pretty good, is World Economic Forum's Global Competitive Report, the U.S. Department of Commerce on country commercial guides. At the industry level, through codes, you can find NAICS and AICS, as well as harmonized tariff codes provide meaning of aggregated industry data. Firm level, Compass, OneSource, competitors' websites. These will be very essential in understanding the micro market that you're dealing with abroad. The product, industrial consumer buyer characteristics, size, age, sex, segment growths, all necessary. If you're business to business, it will be a little bit different, of course. Purchasing power, switching behavior, role of credit, future growth of the market. The consumers and their marketing mix. This is a consumer to business. Market segmentation by user needs, demands, and behaviors. Benchmarking those to your competitors, because you got to see if you could actually penetrate this market. Market trends, current 2-year, 5-year, 10-year. Do we see this market growing? Are we going into a dying market? Marketing mix options. We want to know our distribution channels. How do we get that product there? Comparative pricing strategies and tactics. Will we be able to price competitively in that market based on costs that we will have to accrue? Pricing strategies is a very fascinating field. It's multifold, where you're dealing with pricing of psychological pricing and baseline pricing of what it costs to get your product. So all that stuff goes into this research. And of course, firm-specific data. How are you doing in your domestic market? Try to be careful how you translate that into foreign markets, especially if you've never been there. Need for market research. Sound international marketing decisions cannot be made without good, timely data. But what does it mean to be accurate? And that's kind of what we're going to cover in our later bias research. Yet most small, medium firms do little in the formal planning and research process. They don't do enough of it. And that's kind of sad. A lot of decisions are made based on a lack of awareness that they could have just covered from their bases. And one of the sad parts is the amount of barriers you have to deal with as a market researcher. The lack of research skills in your organization. People who could actually find information but also interpret data and create better questions or answers for the decision makers. Reliance on the patterns of historical patterns. Be careful. It does not always mean the future. It shouldn't really mean the future. Believe that the research is not needed. Oh, a very common idea. We should be fine. Whatever works here works there. Failure to provide resources to carry out research, not dedicating a team or putting in money to it. Belief in a marketing plan is not needed. Awful. Do not be in that situation. Using unqualified researchers. Yes, people who don't know what they're doing. Providing leadership for the research team and implementing findings that are not clear. Other issues in international marketing research is the definition error. We may not have a full idea of what is the margin of error. Instrument error, maybe the sampling requirement or the methodology wasn't correct. Frame error, maybe you sample the questions in a way, or you frame questions in a way that created false results or biased results. Selection error, from the way that you selected your candidates. Is this sampling random enough or and speaks to the population sample that you're looking for? And non-response error, when different cultural patterns show. Maybe people don't have a way to respond the way you think they would. So we have data equivalencies. So all those are various issues you want to consider at the baseline of your research. How do we want to know our position in the market, that firm awareness? We start with a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is a very simple way to get started, but a more complex one is where you measure and weigh these things. And you can actually calculate what is the most important parts of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Just remember though, whether you advance into a higher level of research or management schools or not, you want to know that strengths and weaknesses are your internal company issues. Your opportunities and your threats are your external problems that affect your company. Another cool thing that you can look at to determine where you are in your product line is looking at a Boston Consulting Matrix and ask certain questions. Where am I? Is my company a dog? It's just not really good market growth, but the sales are okay, it's a good market share, or it's a cash cow where the market growth is low and there's low market share. You're just going to cash it, milk the product before you go on to the next one. Or do you have stars that are performing really well with great market potential in the future? Or do you have question marks where we have market potential but the market share is low? So dogs you want to get rid of, cash cows you want to milk, question marks we don't know, it's a lot of uncertainty, and stars are we want to grow that into something more, that the growth is not done yet. So for example, where are products sitting? Dogs could be on the left side here. Twitter's growth is kind of lower. LinkedIn's growth is a little lower. That's why it got bought by Microsoft. If you look at the cash cows, you see TV, it's just a cash cow. The improvements of TVs are becoming marginal because now technology is very advanced, but yet input into technology is still low. Then you got your stars. Facebook was a star, but Instagram is a star. Salesforce is a star. But then you got question marks. Reddit, TikTok, Stream Wars, like Disney streaming programs. So that's where you would want to look into that. We'll cover that next. So in a nutshell, we know it's about the right questions. It's about understanding the environment, your place in it, your positioning, and having an understanding of where your limitations of your research will be, particularly in secondary and the accuracy of secondary research and bias in primary research, which I'll cover in a second.